so lonely, broken angel. I'm so lonely.
Johnny Mercer, welcome to Hardtalk.
Thanks.
It was quite a leap that you made 4 or so years ago when you left the British Army and decided that you would enter politics. Has that transition been harder or actually more easier than you thought it would be?
Well, it's a bit odd in a way because I didn't actually really have any preconceptions around going to politics because I knew nothing about it. So I'd never voted. I'd never been to Westminster.
You never voted?
No, I'd never voted. And I know that's not, a great sort of thing to have done. But when you're going through the processes of constant sort of war fighting, you're going to go anyway, whoever the government is. And so for one reason or another, you do feel quite disconnected from that. And I just never got round to voting. I didn't really have an interest in politics. So I didn't really have preconceptions about what it was going to be like. Aspects of it have certainly been difficult, aspects of it not so difficult, but it's a journey, and I learn something every day.
Well, we'll talk about the journey and what you've experienced on it, but I am interested to know why, when you quite explicitly say that you were pretty unimpressed with the politicians that you met as a soldier, because, of course, foreign secretaries, defense secretaries, even prime ministers would come out to Afghanistan on morale-boosting visits to the troops. You say that, frankly, you didn't think they knew much about what was going on, and you felt that they were indulging in pretty simplistic rhetoric. So what on earth attracted you to that career?
Because actually, when I looked at them, and you're right, I did feel like that when I looked at these people who were, there's nothing sort of bad about it. They just didn't, there wasn't that connection between the military and political sort of systems, if you like. And we saw the symptoms of that through Iraq, Afghanistan, whether it's equipment, whether it's tactics, leaving too early and so on. But I thought, if I really want to change something, I'm going to have to get elected. Whatever I say, they have the power to make executive decisions because they're elected. And so if I want to make a decision or I want to change something, I'm going to have to get elected too, whether that is the military or whether it's mental health or whether it's something to do with Plymouth, where I'm from. And those sort of coalesce in your mind. And look, it wasn't a pleasant realisation that I was going to become a member of Parliament. It's not something I thought about. And there's certainly aspects of it that are pretty difficult to get your head around.
Isn't that a little disingenuous, though? Because you can't fall into politics. You have to fight hard to win the nomination from your party for a seat, and then you have to do an awful lot of doorstep campaigning to get elected. It's not something that happens by accident.
It's not about the politics. It's not about getting a career in politics, right? It's actually about using politics as a vehicle to get things done. And then when you actually believe in something and you want to change it and you genuinely think that actually you can change it as well, that's why you do it. So that commitment is huge.
You've written a really quite a powerful book about your military experiences. It does seem that the army meant so much to you, it was almost like family.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. I think when you join as a young person, young man or woman, and I think that a lot has been said about the military over the last few years and a lot of the mistakes that have been made. But the one thing it still really gets right is this sort of journey that you can go on, that you can join as a young man, what it gets in as a sort of raw product from society and what it turns into afterwards, the sort of life-enhancing experience it is. And it certainly was that for me. I made great friends. I had great experiences, and yes, I turned from a boy into a man in the military, and I'm not ashamed of that. I'm proud of it, and it's something I was proud and pleased to do at the time.
And I used that word family advisedly because you've also been, in many ways, surprisingly honest and frank about a very difficult upbringing you had. A family was a very large family. I think you were one of 8 children to a very religious parents, and it seems it was somewhat chaotic, it was somewhat hot-tempered, and you clearly had some mental health issues as a child, because it seems you didn't find it a very stable family environment.
I think that's fair. I don't want to get into it too much, but it was an unstable environment, and yes, that caused problems, as I think it would for anybody, whether for myself or for my sort of wider family. And I think we all coped with that in its own way. I think it was very clear that part of your life is very formative, and it certainly was that for me. But I kind of left that behind, and I was, and I joined the army, and the army was, yes, in that way.
Well, you're being terribly British about it in a way, because I can tell you don't much want to talk about it, although you have written about it, which is why I raised it. But you say, for example, religion dominated every aspect of life at home. Your father was, you felt, full of guilt and expressed that sometimes in very sort of hot-tempered, difficult reactions to things. And I'm just wondering whether the army was important to you because it actually, in a funny sort of way, despite serving in war zones and everything else, gave you a stability that you hadn't had as a child and that you desperately missed.
Absolutely, it did that. And I think any child sort of growing up, you kind of need your left and right of arc, your boundaries. And I think stability and that sort of predictability, I think it is really important. And yes, the military provided me with that in some ways.
This is maybe a difficult question to answer, but when you reflect on yourself as a teen, for example, and I know you spent time at boarding school, do you think you were mentally unwell?
I think without a doubt I struggled with aspects of my own behaviour certainly around obsessive compulsive disorder, and that was an issue that I recognised in myself, and I received a bit of help for. And look, it was part of my history. Absolutely, it was one of the coping mechanisms that I had growing up. It was something that taught me a lot about myself, about what makes me tick, what motivates me, what I struggle to cope with. And I think actually I became stronger for it. I think there is this perception around mental health at the moment that you kind of get a mental health problem and that's it. You're in this sort of persistent area of management. Now there is an area of management to it, and it's an ongoing thing. You need to keep working at it, but you can get better, and you can go on to have a life completely uninhibited from this stuff. And that's certainly what the army did for me, and moving on from that.
I'm so lonely, broken angel. I'm so